Hello, welcome back to the National Association for Primary Education. We're here talking about our upcoming conference, which is on Monday, the 8th of March, and it's going to be 4:15 to 6:45 p.m. And we're going to talk about it in general terms, but we also have a couple of the people that are going to be presenting and also giving the keynote lectures. So thank you very much for being here. And Alison, welcome. And the name of your presentation is Exploring History Through the Local. Could you tell us, first of all, why that title and exactly what you're going to be presenting us with?
Yeah, absolutely. My passion is primary history, but certainly, very much tied up in all of those themes that Tony will talk about, and the importance of the history curriculum, particularly in actually, kind of developing those things with children. So for me, history teaching for children is very much around culture, identity. We live in a very, diverse communities, and the history curriculum, in terms of for children, developing their sense of identity, developing the sense of knowing who they are, and we can do that very much through not a local history study, but looking at history through the local. So by that I mean, where children come from, whether that might be the place that they grew up, whether that might be where they are living currently, and looking at the context of what, where the children are, where they're learning, what is relevant for them, and how we can teach history in the classroom in such a way that it is relevant, that it does develop their sense of identity, that they have got connections with. So it's very much about people and places, but what's local to the child. So just to give you an example, I had a little boy who he was born in Bexley, and he went to school in Bexley, etc. But his family came from abroad. His mum came from Grenada. He was a regular visitor over there, so he had kind of two locals, if you like. So we're going to look at the importance of that approach. So teaching history through the local, but through the children's connections, and what is relevant for them, and how that can then develop. And it was really important to in our in our history sessions to explore that as well. So he had a connection. He knew where he kind of fitted into this bigger picture, this bigger framework. Their skills, their understanding, but sustained learning. If children are connected, if they see the relevance, and not just those big things that we teach, that people think they have to teach in history, but we're all relevant, we're all important. So that's what I mean by teaching through local people and places, and how that all fits in. So how the child, how the community, how the local fits in to the national, and then to the global, and into that bigger picture.
I think that's incredibly important, partly because I know from my own personal experience, you can only know what's around you, and you can only take the next step in any part of your learning based on what your experience is or where you're sort of being led. And so I think actually being able to connect in that way is really, really, really important.
It also ties in, schools are being asked now, which is great in terms of developing their curriculum, so the children can see themselves in the curriculum. So we're talking about the intent of the curriculum, and curriculums should be bespoke. They should be personalized for those children and for that community, and that's going to be different. So we need to build in that into what we already have, in order to ensure that children do have that broad and balanced curriculum that Tony's talking about, Robert's talking about, and just the importance of it. We worry very much about children developing biases and stereotypes. If we start to address some of the perhaps more challenging issues earlier, we can go some way into not having those biases and stereotypical views that older children may have. We underestimate, I think, as well, particularly younger children. We don't give them the chance to explore issues, sometimes difficult issues at an early age enough. So again, using kind of local people, places, issues is a way of start to build that into children's learning.
If I could just comment briefly on, if that's all right, Mark, on what Alison said, and in very much agreeing with that. I think just 4 very brief points. One of them is the importance of starting with the child where one can, their own experience, rather than something which is very abstract and a long way away. A second point, and it does tie in with some of my work, very much around identity and culture, and actually asking those questions of who am I, where do I come from, where do I fit in, which seem to be absolutely essential questions right the way through our lives and very difficult for young children. A third point is sort of related in a sense to history and subjects, which is maybe an interesting and a slightly more controversial area. But what Alison was talking about it seems to me that one can't quite understand one's own history without actually having some understanding of the geographical aspects and some understanding perhaps of the aspects of religion or literature or those sorts of things. So I think I probably won't argue it at length, but it's certainly part of my view that actually one doesn't want to have too sharp a dividing line between subjects, because actually to some extent these overlap. And the last point is I think it's really important to try and get children into what I would call the ways of working, the ways of seeing things as a historian or as a geographer or working as a musician or as an artist or whatever. That in a sense, the curriculum isn't about sort of lumps of knowledge. It's much more about how people learn to approach and to understand situations and experiences and cultures.
I think it was just picking up on that point that Tony's just made about, how the humanities in general, but, I'm going to be kind of looking at it through history, but how we really can develop those skills and the importance of children asking questions, the importance of, asking some of those difficult questions, but actually modeling and allowing that to happen in order to kind of develop, that kind of lifelong curiosity, if you like. What we don't want is children kind of grow up and passively accepting what they might see in the media and things like that without questioning and without being informed. And that's where I feel very passionate about that, where the history curriculum can really come into its own there, because it's lots of transferable skills across all the subject areas, but it gives children that motivation, if you like, because if they have something that they're connected to and they enjoy, which we know children really absolutely love history and moving forward. So yeah, that was the point I wanted to pick up on from Tony.